Trump is alleged to have broken the law. He withheld boxes of classified nuclear documents. He, all of everything that he was accused of in the New York AG's probe. That's it. Republicans won't mention that part because they wouldn't be able to wallow in perpetual victimhood. So instead they'll deflect and cry foul and promote criminal, conspiracy theories, anything but acknowledge the reasons for the search warrant, for example, in this most recent case at Mar-a-Lago. And that's because the guy is a criminal who can't stop breaking the law.
In this video, Brian Tyler Cohen leaves Michael Knowles stunned for defending Trump. And we're throwing it back to a debate that happened nearly 3 years ago. But honestly, it still slaps. Like the arguments Michael Knowles is making to defend Trump, especially over classified documents and nuclear secrets, are the same recycled excuses the right is still clinging to today. Brian doesn't just call out the BS here. He actually breaks down why these legal defenses fall apart and straight up exposes the double standard at play. It's a reminder that even years later, the tactics haven't changed at all. But the pushback has only gotten even sharper. So make sure to watch till the end to see how Brian Tyler Cohen leaves Michael Knowles stunned for defending Trump.
Brian, have any other presidents violated the Presidential Records Act before?
I can't speak to what other presidents have done with the. I know that this is a big talking point I know it's a big talking point on the right that President Obama has stolen. I know that it's a big talking point on the right that President.
What we don't know at this point is if that was all that this was about, because we don't know all the details of what led to the probable
Alex,
cause.
It's worth pointing out because Brian brought up this point of Donald Trump violating the Presidential Records Act. Donald Trump is accused of having some documents at Mar-a-Lago. Barack Obama took millions and millions of documents to Chicago, and he told the National Archives he was only doing that to digitize the documents. Then he would send it right back. It's been 5 years. They haven't digitized a single document. It's not just Obama. LBJ did it. Nixon did it. Took decades to get those documents back to the National Archives.
The question comes to what kind of documents too, and let's get into this for a moment. This week, the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, spoke about the FBI search of Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. Here's some of what he said.
Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor.
So we've already talked about it a little bit. The Wall Street Journal this week says that the FBI agent seized 11 boxes, including documents marked top secret. Critics say the former president did not follow the process to declassify those. The Washington Post says those documents include nuclear secrets for the U.S. Brian, Michael is saying all this was overkill, was unnecessary, was politicized. What do you say?
Well, first of all, let me just go back to what Michael had mentioned before about President Obama doing the same thing. That's a lie. The National Archives released a statement today that Obama has zero control over the maintenance of how those documents are stored and that they're unclassified. So all you have to do is look to what the National Archives just said to debunk exactly what he said.
Barack Obama has no control over what the Barack Obama Presidential Library does with millions of documents? That seems a little strange to me.
Those documents are stored by the National Archives, not by Barack Obama. He has no say over how those are maintained. They've already released this information. Alex, if you want later while you're editing this to put that on the screen.
Archives.
Yeah, well,
nor were they for LBJ, nor are they for Richard Nixon.
They're maintained by NARA. They're maintained by the National Archives, not by Barack Obama.
Michael, are you
Okay, so like right off the bat, Knowles tries to kick this off with that classic right-wing misdirection. But what about Obama? Didn't he do the same thing? And Brian doesn't even blink. He calls it exactly what it is, a talking point. And not just any talking point, but one that's been beaten to death by conservatives who know it won't hold up under any scrutiny. Then Knowles tries this whole spin about Obama taking millions of documents to Chicago and supposedly never digitizing them. And it sounds dramatic until Brian comes in and it just nukes the whole point with one fact. Those documents are stored and controlled by the National Archives, not Obama himself. Like, that's it. Argument over. And the best part, Brian even tells the editor to put the National Archives statement on screen because it's that clear-cut. It's not a maybe he did situation. The official agency already responded, and Knowles is just ignoring it.
Yeah, but Michael, are you concerned, though, to that point, though, that this concept of potentially having nuclear secrets just sort of floating around in your office, if that's what it really is? And again, we don't know yet if that's what this really is.
Right. The same agencies that said that there was a tape of Donald Trump urinating on prostitutes in Moscow based on a dossier that we know was fabricated and paid for by Hillary Clinton, that's the same group that is now using anonymous sources, insinuating through the Washington Post, which is the Pravda for the deep state swamp propagandists, that these were nuclear secrets. But the point to classification, Brian brings up a great point here. The question is, were these documents classified? The president, Donald Trump, says they were not classified because Donald Trump, when he was president, had discretion to declassify whatever he wanted. And by the way, when we talk about the process for declassification, it's a very murky subject because the president does not answer to anybody on what can be classified and declassified. He doesn't answer to some middling bureaucrat in the DOJ. He is the president of the United States. So even if these documents were nuclear secrets or something, which I seriously doubt that they are. We actually know from the warrant, which has already leaked, that a lot of them were binders of photographs and random sort of papers. That still would not matter. President Trump could declassify as president whatever he wanted and post it on Twitter if the oligarchs in Silicon Valley had not kicked him off. It would seem to me quite clear that that President Trump had every right to have certain of these documents with him. The DOJ was aware of that. And just to prove to you that this was not an urgent matter of national security, Joe Biden's been president for more than 18 months. If this was the urgent nuclear secrets that could destroy the world, why did they wait 18 months? Furthermore, the FBI got the warrant to raid Mar-a-Lago on August 5th. Why did they wait 3 days? They said this is an urgent matter of national security.
Michael, you're throwing every. I mean, I feel like I'm living in a Fox News comment section right here. First of all, they made that request to him. When somebody steals documents, normally they would just go get it. They gave him the benefit of the doubt. They made that request. Then they issued a subpoena, which is not something you would normally do for stolen documents. Then a federal magistrate. Hold on, Michael. I let you speak.
Yeah,
let me just get this out. They made that request, then they issued a subpoena, then they eventually had to get a federal magistrate to sign off on a search warrant when it met the evidentiary burden of probable cause. This idea that they waited too many days, they issued that on a Friday, the search happened on a Monday. Also, this idea that Donald Trump has sole authority to declassify any documents, and so everything that he had in his possession was declassified anyway. That doesn't matter because based on the crimes that he's alleged to have committed, which are espionage, a violation of the Espionage Act, obstruction of justice, and criminal mishandling of government records, it doesn't matter. The classification doesn't matter.
I only brought it up
the
because you
Espionage
mentioned
Act
the
means that Trump had
classification, so I
the
thought that
Espionage
mattered.
Act means that Trump had information that could be used for the injury of the United States or to the advantage of a foreign nation. I couldn't even begin to imagine the meltdown that you would be having if Barack Obama took nuclear documents home with him or was being investigated for any of these things. I would charge you to look into your camera, Michael, and tell me that if you swapped out Donald Trump for Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton in the exact same scenario, that you would be making all of these excuses.
Alright, so this is just wild at this point. Knowles goes full deep state conspiracy mode, dragging in Hillary, the Steele dossier, and even Twitter bans, all to deflect from one simple thing: Trump hoarding nuclear documents at Mar-a-Lago. Like, bro, you're defending a guy keeping top secret material in his golf club office by blaming Silicon Valley? And then Knowles tries that old chestnut. Trump could declassify anything he wanted. But Brian just flattens that argument. Like, completely. He lays out exactly what happened. Trump was asked to return the documents, then subpoenaed, and only after ignoring all of that did the feds actually execute a search warrant. Like, this wasn't a rush job. It was a last resort. And even if Trump could declassify it, which legally is way messier than Knowles pretends, it still wouldn't matter. Brian brings the hammer down. Trump is being investigated for espionage, obstruction, and mishandling of government records. None of that magically disappears just because someone says, oh, it's declassified. And Brian's mic drop moment here, daring Knowles to say on camera that he'd give Obama or Hillary the same benefit of the doubt. You can literally feel how uncomfortable that truth is for Knowles.
Well, it would be very difficult to swap out Hillary because mercifully she was never the president. But she did commit the exact same crime that Trump is being accused of. It was actually much more egregious when Hillary committed it, because Donald Trump is accused of having had some documents which he had every right to declassify in a physical form that the DOJ knew about. They even told him to put a padlock on the room. Hillary Clinton had classified material on a server that was not secure, that could have been, and in fact was, hacked by foreign governments. And furthermore, Donald Trump had documents that were years old, that were outdated documents. Hillary had the documents from her time as Secretary of State. So these crimes were committed by the Democrats. The difference is this: Hillary had much less of a right to do it, and there was no raid on the Clinton compound.
All right, before we get into a deep discussion of
Alex, let me just say
really
one more thing.
quick, and then we're going to move on.
Republicans are losing their minds over Hillary Clinton's private email server, and it's been the better part of a decade now. That's how committed to the bit these guys are over mishandled documents and national security secrets. And yet, this guy's got alleged nuclear secrets in his little golf course / cemetery, and suddenly the pearl clutching over sensitive documents mysteriously vanishes. You know, if you think that Hillary Clinton being careless with emails, and that's what that's the extent of what the federal government found, is equivalent to Donald Trump taking nuclear is equivalent to Donald Trump taking nuclear documents to his golf course, where he regularly consults with his very highly qualified buffet patrons, and didn't return those documents even after a request and a subpoena, then you are living on another planet.
All right,
yes, he did, Brian. You're just misstating the
before we get
facts.
into this hypothetical Hillary Clinton presidency, let's move on. Let's move on and talk about the current president, Joe Biden. Of course, he's dealing with the challenges of inflation, but he's also had a lot of legislative successes lately. Biggest climate change bill in U.S. history, biggest infrastructure bill, first major gun bill in 30 years, bipartisan investment in semiconductors, health care for burn pit survivors, unemployment low. He ordered the killing of the top leader of al-Qaeda. Still, his approval rating is only 40%, according to Real Clear Politics, which is an average of a bunch of polls recently. About 56% disapprove. Brian, do you think he deserves more credit, which I assume you do? And why do you think he's not getting it?
Of course I think he deserves more credit. He's accomplished the most of any president in any of our lifetimes. Why he's not getting that credit is obvious. There's a right-wing media machine that's hell-bent on the destruction of his presidency, and let's not pretend that's the case here. You know, Biden could cure cancer, and you'd have Jim Jordan and the rest of the GOP complain that cancer has rights too. But I believe that the American people aren't stupid. They're recognizing not only what this administration is getting done, but what's at stake if Republicans do take control, and that is attacks on reproductive rights, restrictions on interstate travel and contraception, overturning same-sex marriage, ignoring climate change, ignoring gun violence, and on and on.
So yeah, by the end of all this, it's crystal clear who came in with facts and who came in with just Fox News talking points. Knowles just leans hard on Hillary Clinton, an imaginary deep state boogeyman, to shield Trump, but Brian just cuts through all of it. He lays out the legal processes, the hypocrisy, and the actual stakes. And honestly, it just makes the right's defenses sound like parody. And then when it pivots to Biden, Brian doesn't hold back. He rattles off what the administration accomplished and calls out exactly why the narrative isn't getting through. Because the media machine isn't built to reward progress, it's built to manufacture outrage. The bottom line here is, when you're losing a debate and your last hope is but Hillary's emails, you're not arguing in good faith at this point. You're just clinging to distraction to make your biases sound somewhat reasonable. And speaking of biases, are you getting tired of getting news from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite? How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story, so you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.